Hey guys, welcome back to Celebrate the Struggle. I am your host, Jennifer Hobbs, and I am here today joined with Jennifer Taz Vazquez. She was in the Air Force for 25 years. Thank you for your service. And now her journey has led her. She is a life coach, an EFT Master-Practitioner, which we're going to learn more about that if you're thinking, what is that? Fitness instructor, a writer. And like I said, she is a fellow veteran. Welcome, Taz. Welcome.
Thank you so very much, Jennifer. This is awesome. I truly appreciate the opportunity to not only, talk about my story, but really highlight several organizations out there, to include Warrior Path, which I know we'll get into a little bit more. Wearing my Warrior Path shirt today, just to highlight that, because it was such a profound support in my life, along with some other ways for healing and just getting a chance to get the word out and continue to help others, which I know is a big mission for you as well.
Yes.
And how important it is to know that, you don't have to struggle alone. You're not alone.
And it's important that we do word of mouth, right? Because we can look at organizations on paper all day, but until you have someone that has gone through it, and like for myself, when I meet a veteran, I already have this connection. And so it's nice to be able to trust that and to hear your perspective of it. I almost started talking about it before I pushed record, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, we got to save this for the call. So let me back it up a little bit and just kind of, and I had the opportunity to see your website and read through some things. So I'm going to try not to be, spoiler alert it and let you
okay.
that. But, I see that life has not always been full of rainbows. It's been super challenging. And so if you could share with the listeners and those watching this, tell us a little bit about your journey up to this point and how life's challenges and your perseverance has gotten you to where you are. So whatever you want to talk us, let's just hear about your journey.
Sure. For me, my journey was basically one of almost a lifetime of it. I unfortunately dealt with a lifetime of post-traumatic stress, of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. And the post-traumatic stress for me actually started as a childhood incident and then got exacerbated as I didn't process or deal with loss of life that I had bear witness to as part of my job in the military. Backing up that childhood trauma, I basically blocked it out and had disassociated, blocked it out for about 20 years and didn't really come back to it until my late 20s. And on top of that was military family. And so moved over 23 times in my life. And if you can imagine, on one hand, yay, new place. On another hand, oh crap, new place, having to start all over again. And when you're already dealing kind of introverted as a kid, low self-esteem, dealing with unknown post-traumatic stress and anxiety, depression, it just kind of gets exacerbated every time you would move, because you feel like, oh, am I going to fit in? I have to start all over again. Everything's unknown and unfamiliar. And so it just kind of kept you in that constant anxiety state. Fast forward, through military, through all of that to actually retirement, and had some big things in my life taking place, such as, a divorce after 20 some years or almost 20 years, dealing with a lot of health issues, dealing with a lot of stress, because that chronic stress from the post-traumatic stress and anxiety, depression. I mean, I was borderline obese. I was dealing with high blood pressure. I was dealing with a ulcer, all sorts of things that were happening in my body because I hadn't been dealing with things. And then on top of that, welcome to late 40s and, dare we say it, menopause, and endometriosis and other health issues, all because of things that I hadn't dealt with yet in my life. And on top of that, I had quit a job that was my first transition job post-military, and thought it's going to be a piece of cake to find another job. What do I want to do? And it wasn't, because guess what? It was 3 weeks just before COVID hit. So everything shut down. My spouse at the time had asked for a divorce, and I'm sitting there kind of at my lowest rock bottom point, literally in my living room, jobless, not thankfully not homeless, but jobless, stressed out as all could be, suicide ideation, still dealing with the depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress, and thinking, you know what? Maybe it's time that, if I'm not around, what does it matter? Because I don't matter. And I felt so lucky and blessed that I had at least put a little tether in the past to my parents, because they had experienced the impact of suicide by family members. And I had promised I would never do that. So luckily, I remembered, even in that darkest pit of despair and loneliness, I had remembered, okay, nope, I'm not going to do that. What can I do? And then it was, kind of training and other things kicked back in, and it was starting to read again, starting to learn self-development and growth. And what was fascinating is I came across a statistic. Being researcher, intelligence nerd, hey, I love reading. And in that statistic was, we have over 60,000 thoughts a day, 60,000. And of those, about 90 to 95% are repetitive. And of those, about 80 to 85% are negative. So what the heck? Basically, you're living your life in fight, flight, freeze, not realizing it. And that inner critic, that little voice that's, sitting there saying, you suck, you're horrible, you're not worthy. And all of those negative limiting beliefs that we're buying into because we're not aware of it, that had been going on for so long in my life. And that was really kind of my turning point to say, okay, I need help. I need to start doing something different. And that's then where I found support and help by reaching out. For me, I took a little bit more of a non-traditional healing journey, in the sense that I had tried therapy before, and as prior resident in counseling and down that path as a master's in counseling, totally support the importance of therapy, and believe that many people have been so helped by it. For me, it wasn't the right fit. I kept falling back in old patterns and habits. And so I came across emotional freedom techniques, or EFT, also known as tapping, which is really tapping along acupuncture points. And it was such a profound change for me to go from constantly being in fight, flight, or freeze, constantly feeling anxious, constantly feeling like I'm not good enough, and to have that all go away. And was it, like one day? No, it was a process, but to have all of that go away, to get to a point where I didn't flinch at loud noises. I could, here in Washington State, when it's fireworks time on the 4th, you literally, it sounds like you're in the worst war zone you can imagine. I mean, it's everywhere, M80s and loud fireworks everywhere, 360 degrees around you. And, before, I'd be like this by the end of the night after, 4 hours of fireworks constantly going off. 2 years ago, nothing. I could stand outside and I wasn't flinching. My shoulders were hunching up. My nervous system was not, kicking in to fight, flight, or freeze mode. And it was just astounding. And a huge portion of that I attribute to EFT. Coming back to moving out here, one of the organizations that I supported is an organization here supporting veterans and first responders. It's called the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation. And I started as a volunteer for the organization. They have an annual Race for a Soldier. And the founder, Leslie Main, her son had committed suicide, unfortunately, years ago. And this was her way of her healing journey, post-traumatic growth, of giving back to the community and bringing awareness to the importance of post-traumatic stress, of veteran suicide, and finding alternative ways to get help for others rather than the traditional method that was there. And the race and other, there's a swing for a soldier, race for a soldier, as well as Shoot for a Soldier, a skeet shooting contest, and
Mhm.
many other things. There's a monthly veterans group, etc. But it was it's such an amazing organization. And over time, they actually partnered with the Boulder Crest Foundation. And the Boulder Crest Foundation is out in Virginia. And Gary Falk and his team had basically looked at the fact that roughly 30% of the 3 million veterans that had gone, had been either in combat and or supporting combat, came back, about 30% came back with post-traumatic stress. And similarly, on the first responder side, there was easily the 30%. And that something needed to be done. It was a lot more than just trying to treat physical wounds that people would see through organizations, but really trying to look at it more holistically. And that's where they developed what's called Warrior Path, which is the PATH stands for Progressive and Alternative Training for Healing Heroes. And it's a 7-day or 1-week intensive in person led by peers. And then it's 90-day online support with your small group. So anywhere from 5 to 8 in terms of your small group, and you're meeting regularly with a peer. So the difference from traditional, talk therapy that many people fall through the cracks of, and or mental health, was that it's peer-led, and they introduce you to 31 scientifically proven wellness practices, ranging anything from yoga to a labyrinth, to the beginnings of equine therapy, to art, to journaling, doing a little bit of genograms in terms of, your past and your generational history and seeing how that gets passed down, and so many other areas, that it is such a profound program that I had the opportunity to go to it because I was still dealing with some issues that were still unresolved from my post-traumatic stress and self-esteem. And for me, so I was also, I would say, for a lot of years, kind of discounted my military experience and the trauma that I re-experienced in the military. And so I knew it was time to finally put that aside and work through it. And Warrior Path gave me that, and I got to tell you, literally a couple days in, and it's a very intense 7 days because you jump right in, but it's so healing, and to see literally the life and light come back in to my teammates' eyes was just, I still tear up at that.
Right.
It was amazing.
Absolutely. I find it incredible that they introduce you to 31 different techniques. Like, that is exactly what, in my opinion, is valuable from these in-person events, like equipping people with the tools to take away, and then how they do the continuous 90 days. Like, that's fantastic. I think back to like one of them that I have done, you make a plan for going home, but it's going to be a lot more effective if you have peers that continue to support and check in with you and make you accountable.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it takes a while for habit change and difference, right? And
Absolutely.
putting those skills into practice, and then deciding in your life, and then to go through ups and downs, right? Because that's part of our journey and growth is,
Mhm.
and in this case, they really focus on post-traumatic growth. So this idea of taking profound struggle that we've experienced through post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, addiction, and so on for people, and then to be able to turn it into growth, where it's that profound strength, that healing, and then being able to give back and share like what we do, because we believe so strongly in that life can be different. It doesn't have to be, you're not defined by, it's not that I am post-traumatic stress. It's something I dealt with.
Right.
To see that we're so much more than that. And something that I also love is the fact that the Warrior Path program, not only did it start at Boulder Crest, but then they partnered with the Gary Sinise Foundation, with the Avalon Network, and then now Boulder Crest has 20 other partners or satellites, if you will, around the country. And the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation here is one of them, where they host the Warrior Paths. And then they also now are doing centers for traumatic brain injury,
Mhm.
and just that PTG, the post-traumatic growth statistics or results. I mean, they're always, researching and really trying to determine, is this working? Is this effective? And the results actually show like a 51% decrease in post-traumatic stress symptoms, 41% decrease in anxiety, and then a 56% increase in post-traumatic growth. I mean, that's huge. Statistically, that's huge, huge. And to have that lasting impact and lasting effect for so many. And even after the 90 days, we're still connected. There's a Facebook group, there's an app, there's other ways, for that ability to stay connected with other pathmates that we haven't met, but we know we've gone through similar journeys. And so to be connected that way and support each other that way, long after the program, I think it's just a testament to show the impact of what it can do and what other programs can do.
Yes. Yes. I was so excited, when I reached out to you and you had sent me a glimpse of your story and your journey. And as I'm reading through it, and you mentioned Warrior Path and Boulder Crest, is it Foundation, Boulder Crest?
Yep. Boulder Crest Foundation. Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like this rings a bell, because like a huge turning point for me in my journey through post-traumatic growth was 2 years ago, when I decided to take all my challenges and put my energy into getting back to writing. And I wanted to write a book. And so through that, I wanted to research, because I also very much like research and like to read. And so I knew I needed to start just inhaling as much as I could about post-traumatic stress and things that would help me along my way. And I came across Thriving in the Aftermath of Trauma. And then I went on, after reading that, I went on and I started to do the workbook online portion that they offer, but I could tell that is a lot better if you go do the in-person before you. So I still have my login, and I made it part way through it. And I was like, I think I should go try the in-person one before I continue this, because it would just be a lot more valuable. I also find it very interesting that you have experience in clinicals.
For me, it was a master's in counseling, and I was about 15 years ago, I was actually working towards licensure. So I was working full-time military, and then on the side, I was seeing clients,
Right.
And on that side, and working through my internship practicum, and then residency for when I was stationed in Virginia was 3,000 hours. So I was halfway through, and then unfortunately got deployed. So then I had to refer all my clients, and I got deployed for a year, and just didn't get back to it, just because I kept additional responsibilities in the military, and given my own history, still had more healing to do and wasn't ready yet.
And I find it so interesting that like you're equipped with all that knowledge that you got from your education. And even with that, you kept an open mind to other things, that more holistic approaches. And so it's really cool to have someone have that perspective, and not just becoming like, for example, like if you didn't have that experience and you're, telling people about EFT, and people are like, what's she
Remember times I get that? Yep. Like, huh?
So it
No way.
it almost validates it more, like, oh, okay, wait a minute, let me listen to her a little bit more, since she already, she has the experience in the clinical side of it. So when was it, and maybe I missed this, when was it that did you learn about that at Boulder Crest, or
No, so the EFT I learned about, so I actually had heard about it about 15 years ago when I was a resident in counseling. So as part of the, there's over like 400 therapies that are out there these days. And, as you're learning about them through school, and then afterwards, because I'm always reading, always learning. And I had come across started to get exposure to alternative therapies. And I admit at that time, I was very much more kind of the military traditional mindset of, just show me the facts and show me, this very cognitive and or thinking and how I was dealing with things. Traditional mental health model, if you will. And so I had dismissed tapping at the time. I had said that, and I had seen the benefit of art therapy, which was still, at the time started to be considered a little bit more alternative, but it wasn't nearly as alternative as some of the energy psychology side. And so I had dismissed it. And then lo and behold, come back, after my healing journey 15 years later, as I decide, what, do I want to go back and do I want to be a counselor and work towards licensure or a mental health counselor here in Washington State and probably have to start over all those 3,000 hours again? I said, no, I don't. What do I want to do? And that's kind of, as I was doing the research of where I wanted to use my skills and how, kind of came across life coaching and learned more about what that was. Experienced some mentors who helped me along the way, realized, yes, that's one of the things I wanted to do. But then as part of that, and I think a lot of times, I never in a million years would have thought that I would be an entrepreneur. Never crossed my mind. But with that, as you're starting a business, and you've probably experienced this, not only with writing, but, as you're meeting others and others are talking to you. When we first start, there was that initial imposter syndrome of, who am I to share my knowledge? Who isn't going to listen? I'm not Mel Robbins. I'm not Brene Brown. I'm not, and all of that negative, comparing that we do. And so along the way, kind of, learned to reframe that, but then came across EFT, and she's an emotional freedom techniques practitioner for coaches, and her name's Pamela Brunner. And I did one of her free webinars, and she's working with other coaches, and there's a bunch of us in the audience via Zoom. And, we've got our videos off, but we're tapping along as she's working with these other coaches. And lo and behold, one of the topics was dealing with, it was money scarcity was one, and another one was dealing with imposter syndrome. And I got to tell you, that one session alone flipped everything for me. The feelings of imposter syndrome, that feelings of scarcity went away, literally went away. And I'm like, wow. And so then I started researching, okay, well, I want to use this. I want to bring this into my practice more. And so then I got certified as a EFT practitioner, and then kept going with the training. So now a master practitioner. And I got to tell you, it's profound. I've had clients who they've been triggered and carried around trauma for 60 years. And through tapping, reintegrated those memories and gone. It's no longer an issue, no longer triggered by it. I've had clients who have, they were feeling panic attacks, nightmares, suicide ideation, depression, anxiety because of a more recent incident. And I integrated it's called picture tapping, and you integrate tapping with art therapy, and resolve that trauma. It's gone, completely gone. So no, all of those symptoms gone. And every time, periodically go back to test just to check to make sure there's nothing else coming up, still gone. And that's what I love about tapping, because it combines, if you think about it, it's combining modern psychology. So it does have a little bit of talk therapy and exposure, but because you're tapping on those acupuncture points, you're keeping your nervous system calm. And you strive to do that as a practitioner. If someone all of a sudden hits an emotional spike, you stop and you tap right there to bring that back down in terms of that intensity level, and then you can keep going. And so anybody, whether it be trauma, whether it be depression, anxiety, addiction, weight loss, just getting stuck in life, that they're trying to work through something, and tapping can help that. So not only is it combining modern psychology, but then of course ancient medicine with acupuncture. And then in some ways, it's also the understanding neuroscience and how the brain works and how it stores and where it stores memory, and then how it stores trauma and where it gets triggered. And so there's a book by Bessel van der Kolk the body keeps the score. And that for me was just I knew I was on my personal right path, my purpose and calling in life, because it was that intersection of he talks about EMDR, which is an awesome modality as well. But personally, I like tapping better because it's non-re-traumatizing, but it's still reprocessing those memories. So it's reintegrating it to let it go. And it typically, both EMDR and tapping tend to do it a lot faster than traditional modalities or traditional therapies that are considered the gold standard, like exposure therapy or talk therapy or dialectic behavioral therapy for trauma. And so, yeah, so it's, and then when he talks about, the importance of movement and yoga and meditation, and then, EMDR, or in my case, tapping, I knew that, yep, this is exactly being where I'm at now as a life coach, a practitioner, and then also a fitness instructor. It's just it's that trifecta and just loving where my life is now.
That's incredible. It's so interesting to see how the journey of post-traumatic growth and in like embracing that and going through that can be so profound to take someone who is for example, you like an introvert and now like an entrepreneur, like just coming on here so fluent. When I get the chance to speak, it flows like that because I'm so passionate and I'm just ready to speak about it. It's been life-changing. But then my friend and I were just laughing about this the other day. Like when it comes to me trying to tell a story like that happened at the grocery store, good grief, it takes me forever to spit it out. And it's like, you could see the frustration on my husband or my friend's face, like sitting there like, oh my God, spit it out, Jennifer. But then when it comes to something else, I can just flow. So I really hope for people that are not aware of what post-traumatic growth is and what that takes and how to even get it started, that maybe hearing this today will spark something to look into it. I have a question about the EFT. As you said that you were at, first of all, when you said Brene Brown and Mel Robbins, I was like, oh, I think she and I are a lot alike. Like you and I, not.
Yeah.
So is EFT something, I'm sure, it's more effective with someone else, but is it a tool you could have in your toolbox to do to yourself?
Awesome question. And yes, that's the beauty about EFT. I think sometimes with some of the deeper things, trauma, and or sometimes with addictions or things, habits that our brain basically gets pickled. It gets wired in the negative, and we need to learn to unwire it and wire it in a positive way. I'll explain that more, what that means. But bottom line, yes. And it's wonderful. So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling stressed, you can actually do EFT on yourself, and it's just a matter of, and I'll even give you a brief really quick. So if you just tap right here with me, and you're going to tap on the karate chop point, which is the side of the hand, that little meaty side, and it doesn't matter which side, and you're just tapping there. And then you just start with what we call it the setup statement, and you acknowledge whatever the issue is, even though I feel stressed or even though I feel anxious. And then you name it, where is it in your body? Because your body knows. That's why Bessel was talking about the body keeps the score. It puts it there. If you're not going to deal with it or process it, your body's going to let you know over time. And so you name it. Even though I feel anxious and I feel it in my shoulders and I feel this tightness. That's the first part, because you want to acknowledge it. So, and think of it as that big elephant in a pink tutu in the room. You can ignore it, but if you do, it's just going to get bigger. And so that's why we want to acknowledge it. And then the second part of that setup statement is an affirmation statement. And it's ideally to be able to say, I deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. But some people, when they hear those words, they're like, eek, that resistance just kind of creeps up. So then you tinker, this is where it's helpful to have a practitioner, because you can tinker with it, but you can do this yourself too. You notice that resistance coming up, you feel it in the anxiousness rise in the body. You're like, okay, I got some more work to do. So how about I love and accept myself as I am now. or I accept myself as I am now, or I'm open to the possibility of accepting myself now. So you play with that until it resonates and it feels comfortable enough to be able to keep going, because you don't want that resistance or that inner critic to kind of self-sabotage the work that you're trying to do here. And then from there, you're just tapping on points, and there's about 12 to 13 total, but you can do shortcuts, and it's top of the head, side of the eyebrow point, side of the eye, under the nose, under the mouth, collarbone, underneath the arm. And then there's things you can do, more detailed on the hands, but otherwise you come back here. And each time, all you're doing when you're on those points, all you're saying is that reminder phrase of what's the issue. So this anxiety, this stress, this sadness, whatever it might be that you're identifying, you just repeat it, and you just do that 3 times. So you do the setup statement 3 times, you do 3 rounds of the tapping, and you can go into more detail and explain it more and things, but just that simple formula or that basic recipe can bring down the intensity level of just about any negative emotion that you might be feeling. And so it's pretty cool. So you can do it yourself. There's also guided tappings that are out there. There's some great resources if folks want to check out the tapping solution online, or EFT Universe, which is by Dawson Church, who's really well known in the EFT community. There's a Center for EFT Studies that has some free tappings that you can do. And then the tapping solution, not only online, but they've also got an app. And so there's some great resources that people, if, yes, you can tap on your own, but sometimes maybe depending on how you learn or how you feel with things, it helps to follow along with somebody else. And then from there, you can always work with a practitioner to really work on some of the deeper work. Or if you find that maybe what you're doing is just at that surface level and it's not really resolving, it's more like a meditation where you feel relaxed, but but it starts creeping up again, then it means there's some deeper work. There's some other aspects that need to be addressed that maybe a practitioner is better suited to help with.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of working with a practitioner, if other people are listening to this and are as fired up as I am, and they're like, I want to be someone who goes, does a 360 like Taz, how can they get in contact with you? Even if it's for life coaching, fitness, or if they want to learn more about EFT, how can they, instead of going to Wikipedia and looking up EFT, how can they connect directly with you, Taz?
Best way is going to be reaching out. You can go to my website, which is tazvazquez.com. There's also, I've got my email, dancingdogs2@hotmail.com. I've had that email for like 25 years, and I know I should change it, but it always cracks me up because, I love dancing and my dogs. So, hey. And then of course, and we can share my cell phone number, but the website's going to be probably the easiest place to go, and then to reach out. And so if you're interested in learning a little bit more, or just a consult, and saying, hey, how can I help serve, and maybe point you in some directions or resources, happy to serve in that way and help out, and go from there. And in terms of on the fitness side, that's local here. So I'm a fitness instructor at 2 of the YMCAs locally. Which I love because it's the other passion part of me. I get to serve in this way through teaching dance fitness, and then also through teaching rock steady boxing, which is for those with Parkinson's disease. Fighting back to the boxing studies have shown it helps delay the progression of the disease. And then I'm also one of the coaches or facilitators for the Live Strong at the Y program, which is for cancer survivors, right, as they're working to get healthy again and kind of get back their fitness and strength. So yeah, that's the thing that I really, if I could convey, if the folks could feel what I feel right now from like my soul up, where you just feel this sense of joy and peace and calm and happiness because you feel lit up, what your purpose is in life, that there can be a different way from where things were in the past. And it's not to say there's not a bad day, but it's a night and day difference where the vast majority of the time, this is how it feels to feel that sense of abundance and gratitude and peace, vice anxiousness, depression, the negative thoughts running amok all the time, the feeling like you're not good enough, you're not worthy. And to have that be so completely different, I want folks to know that there's another way, and that get the help, reach out, don't do it alone, because there's so many resources out there.
Absolutely. And I feel like sometimes our minds are shaped in society to think that you're supposed to drive on and do it by yourself. And we were not created
Yeah.
at
Suck
all.
it up. It's not so bad, or don't deal with your emotions, stuff it down.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the information there, if you missed it or you're driving, do not try and write it down. It'll all be in the show notes for you. So you can, even if you just have questions about Warrior Path, like connect with her and get her insight on it. And then together we'll all continue to grow and thrive. We only have one life to live. And I want that joy. I want that fire that builds up in your soul, like you're talking about.
Yep.
Taz, thanks for coming on to share and celebrate the struggles you've been through and where it's gotten you to where you are today, to where you're sharing with all of us, and not just people like me, but other people are going to be walking away just inspired. And thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for what you are doing, Jennifer, and keep it up, because the more we get the word out, help one other person, win.
No doubt. You keep it up too, and have a fabulous day.
Thank you.